Hey, everybody, welcome into the show. Mark Farzetta here. This is the Farzy Show. We're going to recap. That's hilarious. Stock up, stock down when it comes to Eagles, Colts, and the Eagles wrapping up their preseason. Congratulations. We've made it through another preseason. Congratulations. We've made it through another training camp session in preseason with the practices that we don't really get to see in their entirety. We don't get to see them, but they matter more than the games that we get to watch on the old television or streaming network, whatever it might be. That's fun. We'll talk about Ben Von Sumeren's game last night. It was 17 tackles, 11 of them solo. What? We'll talk about Sidney Brown. We'll talk about Tanner McKee. We'll talk about all these fine gentlemen. We'll talk about what the starting lineup will be when they actually kick off in now 16 days for the regular season. And we'll talk about Jason Kelce's documentary. I didn't get a chance to see it last night, so I watched it this morning. Oh, baby, did it get me in the feels. Right in the gut of the feels. The Jason Kelce documentary by Amazon. It is fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic. The trailer looked fantastic. So we'll get into that conversation a little bit. Phillies start a series with the Cardinals. We'll let you know where the Phillies are at right now in the wild card standings as far as all that type jazz goes. And we'll cover all the bases when it comes to your Philadelphia Eagles, of course. So let's start it off with the game last night. Let me just, before I get to anything with our beloved Philadelphia Eagles team, Anthony Richardson. I'm a fan of Anthony Richardson. I appreciate his talent. Certainly, the arm strength was on full display last night. The legs were on full display last night. He was pretty much doing it all last night for the Indianapolis Colts. But the bird, doing the flapping of the wings in the end zone after a touchdown in the preseason, chillax, bro. All right? You can calm the hell down. All right, everyone? And I thought about this. All right, let me put myself in the opposing. And I always like to do this to see if I'm being fair, balanced, and just in my reactions. If Jalen Hurts did that, he was a rookie, and he taunted. He did a motion in jest to the hometown crowd that he was playing against, the opposing crowd. I would say the same thing I'm about to say to Anthony Richardson. Relax, okay? Take a breath. Pump the brakes there, Scooter, okay? Just take a break. Nobody needs that in the preseason. I understand you're playing a game. I understand guys are still trying to bring you down. I understand people are still trying to put your name in their sack book or whatever it might be. But it is the preseason. So just to relax for a second, okay? Don't need to see that. If it was Jalen Hurts, if it was even Carson Wentz years ago, I did relax, all right? Actually, Carson Wentz broke his rib. It would have been difficult for him to do that in his preseason game, but whatever. So I would just say, dude, all the guys that we've had here that have showed flashes, especially in the preseason, the camp crushes, you do a little celebration. You can do that. You're going to do far greater things in your career, all right? Far greater things in your career. And after watching him last night at the pro level, and I do think he's in good hands with Shane Steichen as his head coach. I think he's going to have himself a nice little career for him. And also, what would Michael Pittman Jr. played in the game last night? Shane Steichen knows it was still preseason, right? Did he just want to make sure that he beat Nick Sirianni? Anyway, so that now that that's out of the way, he had some nice escapability plays against the Eagles and their third and fourth stringers last night. Now, let me start with this when it comes to the Eagles and the third and fourth stringers and all that type jazz. It wasn't necessarily just third and fourth stringers, as the final preseason game usually is. I didn't even notice him out there on the field, but Terrell Edmunds was actually your starting safety last night, starting safety opposite of where Reed Blankenship would play. But yesterday I had talked a lot about my prediction versus my desire. My desire is that Sidney Brown is your starting safety. What I think is going to happen, my prediction is that it's going to be Terrell Edmunds. Terrell Edmunds played the least out of any safety eligible for the position next to Reed Blankenship. So that list leads me to believe further that the prediction for the season will be that Terrell Edmunds is your starting safety next to Reed Blankenship. My biggest takeaways from the preseason and from training camp are that your two questionable positions for starters on the defense are set. And they are, one, a guy that we all expected, Kobe Dean is going to be your starting middle linebacker when the season starts. Now, a guy we didn't expect because he wasn't here until 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Zach Cunningham is going to be your outside linebacker next to Kobe Dean. Those are the two guys that didn't play. You saw Christian Ellis out there on the field. You certainly saw Ben Von Sumeren out there on the field. You saw Nicholas Morrow out there on the field. So those guys are fighting for roster spots right now, where Kobe Dean and Zach Cunningham don't have to do that. But it looks like you have now answered the question of who your starting safety is going to be opposite Reed Blankenship. You have certainly answered the question as to whether or not Reed Blankenship is going to be a starter. That's happening. And Kobe Dean and Zach Cunningham are your linebackers. So those questions have been answered. As far as the wide receiver room goes, with Quez Watkins, not seeing him, and seeing Oladame Zaccheaus, whose name I will pronounce correctly one day, seeing him out there in the preseason, but not seeing him there yesterday, I don't think it's going to matter. This battle for the third wide receiver is like talking about in this running back room, who's going to be the number one running back. It's going to be by committee. You're going to have one guy in Kenny Gainwell, I've said all along, is going to lead your team in carries. You're going to have another guy that's going to lead your team in touches, and that's DeAndre Swift. Other than that, you're going to have an opportunity there for Rashad Penny mixed in. Trey Sermon is not going to be making this football team. Maybe you can put him on the practice squad. Maybe you can put him there again. But all in all, Rashad Penny, Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell, and DeAndre Swift are going to be your running backs. But I look at the running backs similar to the way I look at that third wide receiver spot. The third and fourth wide receiver on this team, I think, are going to get a very similar amount of looks depending on the situation with the Eagles, depending who's the hot hand with the Eagles, something we often say about the running back position for this team. So Zaccheaus versus Watkins, I still think it's going to be a coin flip by the time the season starts. I would expect Watkins, if he's healthy, to be out there in 16 days as the number 3 guy if you go to a 3 wide receiver set. So that's the way I see that playing out. But the two biggest questions were about safety and they were about linebacker, and they're answered. The only question you really had about the offense, other than that third wide receiver spot, which, again, I don't think really matters all that much, is your right guard. And that has been answered with actions, not necessarily with words, throughout the preseason and throughout training camp. Cam Jurgens, as Nick Sirianni has said time and time again, Cam Jurgens has gotten every first-team rep. Now, I will say this, and this includes last night's game, but there was a play early on in the game by Tyler Steen, who did have one big mess-up. He had a illegal hands to the face, I think it was, called on him, and he stepped on Tanner McKee's foot. During the broadcast, I guess they just assumed Josh Andrews did it at center because the center is so guilty of doing that so often. But upon further review, it was actually Tyler Steen that stepped back with his left foot and stepped on Tanner McKee's leg. They ended up getting, I think, a 1-yard gain with Trey Sermon. It was a handoff to Trey Sermon, so whatever. But still, a mistake he made. He got called for another penalty. We know in the second preseason game against the Browns, he was called for back-to-back penalties, and all of a sudden cost his team 10 yards in the blink of an eye. But all in all, I do have to say that I am impressed with Tyler Steen's ability and his footwork at the right guard spot. You're going to iron out the kinks, and that's what preseason's for. That's what practice is going to be for. He's still a third-round rookie who's playing position for the most part that he's never played. Some experience in the preseason. He started at right guard last night, which I thought was interesting. Started at right guard. The 2 other preseason games, they started him at left tackle, and then they moved him to right guard. This time he just played right guard. There was one particular instance there in the first quarter that it was after the Eagles. It was the Eagles' third possession, excuse me. They get the ball, received via touchback. They started with a touchback. It was a completion to Trey Sermon on a 3rd and 4, so they were able to convert on this particular play. But Steen blocked 2 different players. He pushed one player into his right tackle. He pushed the other guy out of the way towards his center in Josh Andrews yesterday. And that was on one play. And it was a really easy play. Not easy, but it looked easy. He made it look simple. He dropped back a little bit. He had good footwork. He pushed one guy one way, pushed another guy the other way. And it was just, I thought, great footwork and great use of his hands as well. And when you talk about the small wingspan or the short wingspan that he's supposed to have, well, it certainly looked like it was benefiting him there at the guard spot where he's playing in that phone booth, as they like to say. So that was one play that jumped out to me. As far as the penalties go, that's stuff that I think will all be cleared up in due time. That's why he's not going to be a starter. That's why he's going to be a backup. But All I got from him in the preseason was basically all I was asking to get from him in the preseason and training camp, which was show me you could be that now overused term Swiss Army knife when it comes to this Eagles offensive line. We can line you up at tackle. We can line you up at guard, and you're going to have success. You're going to help this team. You're not going to drag them down. You do the same type of thing with Jack Driscoll. You can do a similar thing with Dennis Kelly, who I do think is going to make the team. So that was one thing that jumped out to me from last night's game about anybody that might have been on not a bubble, certainly, because you're not going to cut a third-round offensive lineman. You're not going to be doing that. But I look at a guy like Tyler Steen, and I just say, hey, give me this one thing in the preseason and training camp, and he certainly gave it to us. And the idea that he will be able to be an off-the-bench piece. He'll be able to be, I don't want to say rotational, because it's not like you're going to be mixing them in, but yes, he will be a steady backup if called upon to be so. That's all I needed. That's what I got. Thank you, Tyler Steen, and thank you, Stoutland University. As far as the rest of the pack, takes out elongated legal pad. Tyreek Maddox Williams. Nice interception, nearly a pick six. Not going to be making the team. It looked like Ellinger was not at all on the same page as Kenyon Drake, who wasn't even looking at his quarterback when they threw the football. So that timing route was not well timed. And Maddox Williams, not Williams Maddox, out of Rutgers University, did a phenomenal job of jumping the route and taking it the other way. Not for six, but still a good play by him. They interviewed him after. At his locker, he's standing there, and as you would assume, he was very proud of himself. So I doubt he'll even be a practice squad player, but at least nice to see him make that type of play. Ben Von Sumeren, let's get to him. He was the sexy name after this game with 17 tackles for the Eagles in this one. 11 of them solo. Not necessarily a great thing. Some of those you got to get to the play beforehand. Some of them on passing plays, got to get there beforehand. You'd like to see him break that up. Here's one thing I want to see from Nakobe Dean. While I'm talking about the positional linebacker, there's one thing I want to see from Nakobe Dean that you didn't see from Trent Edwards. Jeez, I did it again. TJ Edwards. Good Lord. One thing you didn't see from TJ Edwards that I want to see from Nakobe Dean. Now, Edwards had all the blocks in the world. Excuse me, all the tackles in the world. And that was great. Phenomenal. But I'd like to see a guy like Nakobe Dean not get the opportunities to make that many tackles. Instead of making a play after the ball is caught, I want to see him with speed, quickness, and instincts break up the play before it's a completion. Edwards struggled in coverage. It was one of the things that we talked about every single week, Seth Joyner and I, doing the Jacob Media pregame show. On games where I was sticking around and watching the game there on site. Now that I moved to the suburbs, I got to now stay on the site all the time. Oh, and I'll be doing post-game show there as well. But one of the guys that I would talk a lot with Seth Joyner about was TJ Edwards and his inability to break up a play before it happens. This is one thing I'm going to be looking forward to seeing from Nakobe Dean. Now, I want to fully acknowledge that TJ Edwards' spikes are some big spikes, some big cleats to fill at the linebacker position. I know everyone wants to look at linebacker with the Eagles and be like, well, he's a linebacker for the Eagles, so how good could he really be? Well, two of your last linebackers in Alex Singleton and TJ Edwards have gone out and found themselves starter jobs, and they've gone out and found themselves 3-year contracts and gotten paid a little bit of money, more so than the Eagles are willing to pay anybody. So they found success elsewhere. They found a role, more than a role, but starter's role elsewhere. So they're decent players. But when it comes to this Eagles team, they don't really tend to value that position. And two undrafted guys have been your linebackers for the last 4 years here in Philadelphia. Now you have a third-round pick that has the pedigree that a lot of people thought might be a late first-round pick, certainly a second-round pick. What? Not a second-round pick? Going to be a third-round pick? Myself included. And now he is got the green dot. So if there's anything I want to see, it's not necessarily making 160 tackles, which we talked about with Dan Silio last night in the Jacob Media Pod Hockey postgame show, but it's breaking up plays, stopping plays before they happen. I want to see, instead of maybe 160 tackles, maybe, I don't know, break up 10, 15 in passes to any tight end that may be coming your way. When I see you drop back in coverage, I want to see that you're comfortable in that role. Maybe I see an interception from you. Maybe I see a couple interceptions from you. Maybe I see some more splash plays from you. Maybe because you're faster than TJ Edwards. Maybe because you're quicker than TJ Edwards. I might see in the backfield get a sack for yourself. Maybe a couple of more tackles for the loss as well. That's where I think the difference is going to come. Because obviously, compared to TJ Edwards, he's undersized. But maybe the instincts, the speed, the quickness, maybe all that stuff lends itself to make you believe that Nakobe Dean might have, in another way, a more successful year overall than TJ Edwards. That's what I'll be waiting to see this year. Now, that brings me to the man that played last night, Ben Van Sumeren. Not necessarily the instincts. It's growing. But I will say this. As I started out the preseason, as I started out training camp, I said there's a couple of guys I'm going to be looking at here, and Ben Van Sumeren was one of them. Show me what everyone else is talking about here in terms of the raw talent. I think raw is a wildly accurate word for a guy like Van Sumeren. Instincts not necessarily there, but kept up with guys. The fact that he was at least there to make 7 tackles, be in on 17 tackles. The fact that he was able to be there for 11 tackles solo is obviously a good sign. It's better than not, but you do want to see him maybe break up those plays before they happen. I like the idea that Sean Desai trusted him enough, although he wasn't able to really get home, trusted him enough to get into the backfield and blitz him a couple of times. He did the same thing with Christian Ellis earlier in the game. But you saw it that he was at least trusting Ben Van Sumeren to at least try to make a play in the backfield there by setting him on a couple of blitzes. So I'd like to see that. In coverage, there were certainly a couple of plays there where he was there to make the play and just missed it, or it was just a good enough throw by Anthony Richardson to beat Van Sumeren in the game. But he was in the right place just a second late. And maybe as the raw talent becomes a little bit sharpened and a little less raw and a little bit more ready, he'll be a guy that'll be Johnny on the spot to make the play. But overall, I'm not going to shake a stick at 17 tackles that he was in on or 11 tackles that he made solo. It's a nice sign from a guy that played the vast majority of the game. So overall, I think he gets a practice squad spot. I think he just had to show you that he could play football and play linebacker in the pros to make the practice squad, and I think that's ultimately what he's going to do. I do think Nicholas Morrow is going to be a linebacker on this team. I do think Christian Ellis is going to be another linebacker on this team. I think Dean, Cunningham, and then Morrow and Ellis are going to be your 4 linebackers. I do think they keep 4 linebackers on this one. Devin Allen, obviously the big 73-yard return. Great to see guys running out there on blocks to help him out there. One guy that I did really like, even though I don't think he's going to make the team, I've been waiting to see something from Tyree Jackson as a receiving tight end. And last night I finally saw something. There was one play in particular where he got open. I think he ran a 10 and out, and it looked like Tanner McKee finally saw him. I don't know if it was the second or third read, but it was late in his progression. And he dropped back, saw him open, and just then the pressure was collapsing on him, and Tanner McKee tried to cut it upfield, try to make a play, and he ended up getting sacked. But on that particular play, you just saw Jackson be able to get open. There are other plays where he was running out routes where he was wide open. He had a couple of catches in this game, and you saw he had an ability to run with the ball. That's awesome. Obviously a great thing for a tight end who's going to be catching the ball in a lot of traffic. It wasn't just catching and going down. He was catching and then being able to get yards after the catch. So that was a great thing to see from him last night, and I finally saw that from Tyree Jackson. One guy that you guys know, and I mentioned him earlier, but Sidney Brown played the vast majority of the game last night. Not a good sign for someone that you're rooting for to be a starter. And he has not looked like the same player that he looked like in week 1 against the Ravens. I don't know if that's coaching. I don't know if that's telling him to stay back, but there was one particular play in the third quarter that stuck out to me. And it was the definition of what the Eagles are worried about. It was a tough play to make because so many guys were around. But essentially in that third quarter, he came up with a big whiff trying to come up and make a play. 2 guys, it might have been Hall still in the game at the time. 2 guys converge on Hall. Sidney Brown comes up to make the big hit. Now, this is where a simple wrap and join the rest of the fray works just fine. Sidney Brown came in, lowered the shoulder, whiff. The whiff. Not the best of looks for Sidney Brown. All in all, last night, looking at his stats from last night, came up with 4 tackles, 3 of them solo. Not terrible, but not as much around the ball as we had seen him in that first preseason game, though he did set the bar rather high. Eli Ricks, quarterback, will make the team. One thing I did look at from him last night, one thing I did pay attention to from him last night, first half, I thought he struggled, getting beat on slants. And again, Michael Pittman Jr. is playing in this game. Why? But that was good talent that they were up against. Eli Ricks got beat on a couple of slant plays, unfortunately. And then in the third quarter, had a series where he broke up, or I shouldn't say broke up. He had one pass broken up. And then previous to that, he just had blanketed coverage, like all over his receiver that forced an incompletion. So 2 good plays on the same series. It was good to see that from him. Keely Ringo is going to be here. Where he was drafted at, combined with the fact that they still need corners on this team, especially with Zach McPherson going down. They seem to always have to mix guys in there. He will be on the team. Same type of thing. Better in the second half. Anthony Richardson kind of had his way with a lot of these guys in that secondary early on in the game, and then as the game went on and backups went in, including Gardner Minshew, they started to be a little bit better, especially Erlinger going out there. Amazing. If worst quarterback goes out there in your secondary, looks better. But overall, the Eagles are going to be stocked up on corners for this team, and hopefully they'll have guys that will be able to develop as the year goes on. Guys that I think hurt their stock. Now, Kayvon Wallace went from a first-team rep guy being mixed in there with Terrell Edmonds to a guy playing in the fourth quarter of preseason game number 3. Not necessarily the best look for Kayvon Wallace. So he's going to make the team, but it doesn't help his status. Justin Evans has helped his status. I think as the stock has dropped with Kayvon Wallace, Justin Evans has helped his stock. And one thing that you got to keep in mind, and John McMullen reminded me of this after the game last night when he was doing the post-game show with us, is that Justin Evans can also play the nickel spot. So that's 2 birds, 1 stone by keeping him on the roster. So that's a help. And let's not forget that, look, Reed Blankenship, we all hope, full 17-game season. We all hope he's fine and all that stuff, but you're still going to need depth at the safety spot. So I think Justin Evans still makes this team. I could definitely see a world where you have Terrell Edmonds as your free safety, you have Reed Blankenship as your strong safety. Those 2 are your standards. And then after that, you probably have Sidney Brown, you probably have Justin Evans, and then you probably have Kayvon Wallace. I could see all those guys making the squad right now. One guy that's certainly, not that he had great odds of making the team, but Janarius Robinson, the defensive end, absolutely had a kill shot on Ellinger last night and whiffed it. Ellinger ended up making a throw downfield to, I forget who it was, but I know that Ben Van Sumeren was in coverage, and he ended up getting the pass interference call on him. I don't know if he thought that Ellinger was brought down in the backfield, but Robinson just had a kill shot on him and looked like he was trying to give him an awkward bro hug. And Ellinger was like, slip, and evaded that and rolled out to his left, made the play downfield. So I would say stock down there for Kayvon Wallace and Janarius Robinson after last night's game. So that's what jumped out to me. Let's listen to your head coach here talk about what was able to work for the Eagles in last night's game and what he takes out of preseason game number 3, as well as the training camp and joint practice.
You know, I've been on teams that last game the player played himself into it. You know. Austin Eckler comes to mind. Not sure he was going to make it beforehand, and then had a big game at San Francisco back in 2000 and what year was that? 16, 17, and I think it was 17, and made it. So, we're watching everything. So, we'll go back and evaluate this tape and see who popped up on tape.
There's nobody I really looked at in this game. And I mean, that's a hell of a compliment. I know everyone will jump to Reed Blankenship helping himself out last year, playing in that third preseason game the way he did. I talked to a lot of people that say he would have made the team anyway, but it just further solidified his spot that he already had. I can see why. He looked like he was going to solidify his spot even before that game. But That's one name that jumps to mind in recent memory here with the Eagles, but Austin Eckler is certainly some praise. A guy that has helped himself out in a major way, especially being after being an undrafted rookie in that 2017 season that he alluded to when he was with the San Diego Chargers. LA Chargers. Me scusi. But there's nobody I looked at in this game that I said made a spot-saving game. Like Tyree Jackson, I think practice squad. Ben Van Sumeren, practice squad. Nicholas Morrow had a tackle for loss in the game. Did he get credit or was it a no gain? Yeah, tackle for his one tackle was tackle for loss. Yeah. So maybe, but I doubt one tackle is going to be enough to save anybody. I think he would have been here anyway. I think he is going to be here anyway. But there's nobody that I looked at in this game that went, oh, yeah, definitely. This guy is now safe because of the way he played last night. Trey Sermon had a touchdown in every preseason game, and I still don't think he's going to make the squad. One other name that jumped out last night was Tanner McKee. And for whatever reason, the Eagles just seem absolutely set on Marcus Mariota being their backup quarterback. I found it very interesting that even on the broadcast last night, Al Michaels pointed out the fact that by the end of the quarterback show on Netflix, like Marcus Mariota was gone. It was like, does he even love football anymore? Does he even want to play football anymore? Kind of got to question it. And I found that interesting because last week when Mike Missinelli joined the postgame show with me and Derek Gunn, he had said the same thing. Like, does this guy even like football anymore? You got to be concerned about that. And then here he is in the preseason getting outshined, outshone, outplayed by a rookie 6th-round pick. Not a good look for Marcus Mariota. However, the Eagles, they just seem like Marcus Mariota is the guy. I do find it interesting. They put him out there for one series. They got a touchdown. And I was like, get him out of there. I wonder if they didn't score on that drive, if they would have tried to put Mariota out there again. He had one good throw. He made actually he had two good throws. One was pass interference. Dan Arnold was in pursuit of a good throw. He got held up, and they didn't call it. He definitely got hit before the ball got there. But I thought Marcus Mariota made a good throw. He led his receiver, and I thought that would have been yards after the catch, but I thought he was interfered with. They didn't call it. It is what it is. Judging Marcus Mariota on that one particular play, I think he put the ball where he needed it to be, where the Eagles needed it to be. And then later, gets flushed out of the pocket, rolls to his left, reverses, and then is able to make a throw downfield to Deion Kane for a 13-yard gain, and they ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive. So I was just curious if they didn't score a touchdown on that drive, if they were going to be able to, if they were going to put him back in for another series, be like, just have a good series. We want you to go into the season feeling confident. We want you to go into the season feeling as strong as possible the rest of the way. Regardless, it doesn't really seem like Tanner McKee had a chance. The only guy Tanner McKee had a chance to outperform and outshine was Ian Book. And Ian Book is, by Tuesday, will most likely have a meeting with the head coach with his playbook, and they'll thank him for his time here on the Philadelphia Eagles. As far as Nick Sirianni goes, talking about his backup quarterback, he did have some glowing things to say about Tanner McKee and was asked if anything surprised him about Tanner McKee's performance throughout training camp in the preseason.
I wouldn't say anything surprised me. We drafted him because we liked him, and we liked the accuracy that he showed on tape. We liked the decision-making that he showed on tape, and he's continued to show that throughout practice and throughout games. I think he's put 3 good games together, and so it was, excited to work with him, and I'm really pleased with how he was this preseason.
Very comfortable too.
Yeah, he was. We got sacked a bunch at Stanford, and so we were pretty good on the O-line though. So no offense to anybody there, but like he felt real comfortable back there. You could definitely see that.
What kind of moment do you think?
As of last night, he was 19 of 34 for 158 yards. He averaged 4.6 yards per catch. He was sacked twice in last night's game. I just find it funny that you always talk about competition, and it's one of your core values. I mean, you can't tell me you watched preseason and told me Marcus Mariota was a better competitor than Tanner McKee. And then talking to people that saw every snap of training camp, Marcus Mariota was just flat out playing better. And he was playing with the twos, and Tanner McKee was playing with the threes, and that was that. I mean, I'm not that surprised by hearing that, being that that's literally how the depth chart played out throughout the preseason. But I haven't heard the greatest reports about Marcus Mariota at training camp either. Look, it's a position that you hope that you don't even have to play, right? You don't want the backup quarterback playing. Unless it's, wow, they're up 30 in the fourth quarter. All right, how about it? Get some reps there, fellas. Especially this year with the ability to carry a third quarterback anyway. That's nice. Or dress a third quarterback. That's nice. But as far as Tanner McKee goes, you can't tell me that Marcus Mariota had a better preseason, because he did not. And I was excited to have Marcus Mariota when they signed him, because of the whole idea that he's got a similar skill to it can help your running game in the similar way that Jalen Hurts can do that. And just throw them to play point guard. That's all you got to do in this offense with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. Hey, let's play a little point guard. Play a little point guard. You don't have to be Joe Montana. You don't have to be Tom Brady. You just be playing with point guard. Just spread the love. That's all you got to do. Oh, and occasionally run. And keep defenses honest and keep running lanes open for your running backs. Yeah. Man, oh, man. Position hope never has to play. But if they do, you want them to at least, be good enough to complete a pass. Marcus Mariota has not done that with great consistency in his career. The one name that I've talked about probably the most is Sidney Brown throughout the preseason. Does not look like he is going to win himself a starting job out of camp, but does remain optimistic that he'll continue to be a sponge throughout the rest of practice leading up to the regular season in 16 days. Here is Sidney Brown at his locker after the game.
Yeah, it's awesome. You know what I mean? You get to learn. I mean, each day you learn a little bit about the defense, learning what you can do, what you can't do. And especially these preseason games, it's just experience that you can put on your belt and just move forward with, right? Yeah, they mean nothing right now, but I mean, in the long run, it's gonna pay dividends, I think.
On from you guys. So real quick, just on that, Sidney Brown. The learning thing when a young player, especially after the preseason is wrapped up, when a young player is talking about still learning and watching other guys, that tells me he's going to do more of it. Look, I didn't need to hear him at his locker to know that he's not going to be the starter in week one, but I at least want to know what his mindset was and what his mindset is, and it's still in the branch of learning. It's still very much on the branch of learning. It's not on the branch of, I'm going to start, and I'm going to make plays for this team. If he gets that opportunity, then he's going to do it. But as of right now, with Sidney Brown, he's in a situation where he is just trying to absorb as much as possible. And maybe that's the reason you saw the drop-off in at least stat sheet numbers, as opposed to seeing him around the ball as often as he was in that Ravens game. So look forward to seeing. And let's not forget that, I mean, he was starting against a guy who played, or he was playing against a guy who played in a playoff game last year. So, I mean, it's not like he was playing against chopped liver while he was out there. If I learned anything from this preseason, I wish it was as specific as this player really showed me something. This guy is going to be dangerous, who we didn't talk about. We knew Jalen Carter is a very talented player. That's why he was drafted where he was drafted. We know he's even more talented than where he was drafted. Nolan Smith showed me the speed that we were really looking for coming out of training camp and into the preseason, coming out of Georgia. So you saw that. Jordan Davis showed some versatility in playing in the defensive end position. Nakobe Dean showed his instincts. There were things that we were looking for in preseason that we didn't necessarily need to see, but it was nice to see. Seeing Jalen Carter win his first snap at the pro level was nice. Seeing Nolan Smith get into the backfield was nice. Listening to Nolan Smith after games talk about how he's hungry enough to eat off the floor, to hear that kind of mindset is nice. But ultimately, nobody jumped out to be like, oh, I wasn't expecting this. This is incredible. Everyone, with the exception of Marcus Mariota, everyone I was expecting to see something from, I saw something from. I had one ask of Nakobe Dean when he was healthy to go out there and make a play that makes us go, oh, okay, there's the guy we've been talking about. Jalen Carter, we got it. Nolan Smith, we got it. And Sidney Brown, we certainly got it in the first preseason game. Tyler Steen, I saw some good things from the offensive line. The penalties got to be cleaned up. But the only guy that I really wanted to see something from, like Marcus Mariota making a throw to Deion Kane, should not be a brag. That should be the standard. And I was like, oh, he made a play. Look at this. Probably the most disappointing. If you had to say, like, who jumped out at you, it was guys you were expecting to jump out at you. If you were going to talk about one guy that was most disappointing, it'd be Marcus Mariota. Yet no change. It's still going to be your backup quarterback. So, hey, look, hopefully, he still loves football. Hopefully, hopefully he never plays. That's the real hope here, unless you're up 30 in the fourth quarter, whatever. But yeah, that's what I got. That's what I got out of the preseason. And then generally speaking, this is what I got out of the preseason. With joint practices being all the rage nowadays, oh, yeah, these preseason games, man, they don't matter one lick. They don't matter one iota, these preseason games. Good God. Yeah, we won practice today. Oh, did you? Did you win practice? That's cool. What was the score at practice? Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go any further, let's talk about one thing we haven't hit yet. The Philadelphia Phillies, who were idle last night. Here's where they're at in the wild card standings. They are 2 games up on the Cardinals, on the Cubs. They're 2.5 games. Sorry, Ari, I slipped in the Cardinals there. Miss Guzzi. The Phillies right there, 2.5 games up on the rest of the field when it comes to the top wild card spot in the National League. They go into action tonight against the Cardinals for a 3-game series. The Phillies 2.5 games up on the field. The Chicago Cubs. They're half game up on the Diamondbacks, who have now won 5 in a row. What? Giants still looking up at everybody else. They're a half game out. Reds right now are a half game out. Excuse me. Giants and Reds are a half game out. Marlins 2 games out. Wah, wah. And the San Diego Padres, the Fathers, are 6 games out of wild card contention. That's where we sit going into this 3-game series tonight, beginning against the that Cardinals squad. We've gone over the schedule with the Phillies and how they wrap things up down the stretch here. Got a ton of games against the Mets, so that's a good thing, I hope. Hopefully the Mets don't all of a sudden have answers for the Phillies again, especially after imploding after the trade deadline, and just before the trade deadline, I should say. Seems like the only team that could really beat is the Phillies, so that sucks. But I'm fully expecting this team to be a playoff team. I've been fully expecting this team to make the playoffs before they were even a top 3 wildcard team in the National League. You're going to need some things to go right for you. Aaron Nola is certainly one of them. Consistency from that fella. Zach Wheeler, consistency. Michael Lorenzen, some more consistency. Taijuan Walker, hopefully on the other side of that dead arm and the consistency. Ranger Suarez, come back. Christopher Sanchez. See him come out tonight and do himself some favors of putting himself and this team in a position to win the ball game. That would be nice. Don't forget, 7:05 start time tonight in South Philadelphia when they start up this 3-game series. I always mess up his name. Miles Mikolas will make the start for the Cardinals. So cross my fingers and see if the if the Phillies can start things out tonight with a nice victory in South Philadelphia. The Cardinals, by the way, come into town 56-72 on the season. They have certainly had their struggles. Looking over the last 5 games, they've only won 3 of them, only won 2 of them. They're coming off a series against the Mets. They're coming off a series against the Pirates. Phillies, of course, coming off winning 2 of 3 against the San Francisco Giants and losing 2 of 3 to the Washington Nationals. So some get right time for the Phillies. Get back on the winning track with some consistency. Obviously be a welcomed sight. One other thing I'd like to see in this series with the Cardinals, the consistency from Nick Castellanos. Struggling, of course. Would like to see that August swing return to what it was in the first 2 weeks of August for Nick Castellanos. I think we're at a point in the season now where you can start relying on the power of Kyle Schwarber. You can start relying on the power of Bryce Harper, which is something that when he didn't hit a home run for 38 games, his longest drought as a Philly, I think that is behind him now. I think he has found that power stroke yet again. I think it was Todd Zalecki of MLB.com, Phillies.com, putting it out there, saying that you finally have seen that power stroke, that MVP power stroke come back for Bryce Harper. No better example than certainly a 3-run game-tying home run that he had in the bottom of the 9th inning against the Giants 2 nights ago. That's something that I was very much looking forward to and was doubtful as to whether or not you would see it again, being that he came back from Tommy John surgery at a record pace. That's pretty incredible. But I think you can see that type of production from Bryce Harper for the rest of the season. And let's not forget that Bryce Harper won himself an MVP. And it's not going to happen this year. It's not going to happen this year. But Bryce Harper won himself an MVP with the way he played the last 2 months of the season a couple of years ago. So it'd be nice to see that kind of production again from Bryce Harper. And then one thing I'm really curious about in the last month and 2 weeks of the season, I'm curious on the development of Rhys Hoskins. The conversation when the season started, so coming out of spring training when, of course, he hurt his knee, the conversation was, I hope to make it back for the playoffs. Let's just follow this bouncing ball for a second here. Alec Boehm has played great at first base. Alec Boehm has played great at third base. Alec Boehm has been great for the Phillies this year. The power numbers, look, I'm going to go ahead and venture to guess that since he tied his season total with 13 home runs in this series against the Giants, I'm going to go ahead and assume that Alec Boehm is going to top his home run total from last year. I think it's a safe bet. I think he's going to hit one more home run between now and the first week of October. But Rhys Hoskins, if he's inching his way back, is he actually going to play in the playoffs? We talk a lot about Bryce Harper, and rightfully so, coming back after 5 months of Tommy John surgery, or after Tommy John surgery. Rhys Hoskins making a miraculous comeback as well to help this team, seeing him run. I would be blown away if that was the case. Listening to him talk the other night, it's not out of the realm of possibility. The Phillies could have 2 miraculous returns from injury this season in Bryce Harper and Rhys Hoskins. And I know everyone would rather not see Rhys Hoskins at first base, but I wouldn't mind seeing that on-base percentage at first base. And being able to have, and what goes into this above all else is that even though Bryce Harper, I believe his power stroke has come back, he's not getting healthier as the season goes on. He's getting hit by pitches. His back's bothering him. His knee was bothering him the other day. This is a concerning thing. So if you could give him a little bit more rest at times, then yeah, I wouldn't mind giving Bryce Harper a break. And also keeping Alec Boehm at third and Rhys Hoskins at first. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that if the opportunity presents itself, which I still doubt, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. And yeah, please stop beating up Bryce Harper, okay? He's gone through enough this season. All right? Thank you. Please and thank you. All right. Let's get into the chat check and see how you wonderful people are doing. I'm going to start it out on the Farzy Show channel and see how you guys are doing. Sean Gillespie, good morning. Nice to see you. April, what's going on? Nice to see you. T-Bro. I was like, bro, you're playing against guys who might not even make the 53. Shane, calm your boy down. T-Bro, I had the same thought about Anthony Richardson and what the hell that celebration was, flapping his wings. Who is it? They're doing the interview on Amazon Prime last night. They're doing the video on Prime Video last night. And they asked Shane Steichen, apparently going into the locker room at halftime, saying, you like that type of confidence from your quarterback? Yeah, love that kind of confidence from my quarterback. Really? That's very. I'm all for celebrations. I hate the fun police, but that was a little weak. That was a little weak. But I will say that. Sean Gillespie's in agreement. Scott! Clothing stand. What's up, Scott? Thanks, brother. Appreciate you. April, definitely not impressed with Mariota. He's looked like he was confused out there. I would concur with that. April's also excited to watch the Kelsey documentary. Jason Kelsey is already a legend. He's a playing legend. I know the term is like living legend, but I think that's a little dramatic for this. But he's a playing legend. He's still playing. He's already a legend. He's a Hall of Famer. 5-time All-Pro Super Bowl champion, 2 Super Bowl appearances. Yeah, I'd say he's a Hall of Famer. In my lifetime, I've had, technicality. The Sixers won when I was like 6 months old, whatever. But in my memorable lifetime, what I could remember, the Philadelphia's only won 2 championships. I was 27, 26 years old when the Phillies won the World Series in 2008. That was incredible. And then, of course, the Super Bowl in 2017, 2018. So there's been lovable, I hate to use the term losers, but there's been lovable non-champions. The 93 Phillies, of course, had a whole squad packed with them. Okay. The 04 Eagles, we all love Trey Thomas and John Runyon and Hollis Thomas and Hugh Douglas and Brian Westbrook, of course. And then people, of course, are in or out on Donovan McNabb. Brian Dawkins, of course, on that squad and what he brought to the table year after year after year. But, man, take that status of those teams that you loved so much but didn't win and then just put an ultimate legend. And what you have is a mythological creature. And you put a name on that mythological creature, and that man's name is Jason Kelce. I remember Jason Kelce just coming into the league. And I remember, I don't know what it was. I just thought he was a very entertaining guy. And if you remember, he started out with that big bushy beard and that long hair, and he wanted to be a berserker. And I remember doing interviews at Lehigh talking about how the Vikings had, the actual Vikings, not the team in Minnesota. The actual Vikings had these berserkers that run naked in the battle, long hair and beard flopping all over the place, right? Amongst other things. And that's what they would do. And Jason Kelce thought of himself as a berserker. And I remember thinking, this guy's nuts. And I any chance I had, I would interview him. Any chance I had an interview, he'd talk about Howard Mudd. I remember the first time he ever cursed on the air in Philadelphia was with me. I'm so honored to have that title. He was just a very interesting guy. And I just remember thinking, if this guy turns into something, if this guy really turns into something, this city's going to love him. And boy, did he turn into something. He turned into a Hall of Famer. He turned into a Super Bowl champion. And, of course, he's always been a character. And seeing him in this documentary, in the 2.5-minute trailer that I watched, that a lot of you have seen already, it's like getting to see a trailer of Hercules, like this mythological figure that is very much real on and off the field. And I, too, April, I'm very much looking forward to watching that documentary on Jason Kelce, because I do think it is going to be something amazing. And everything that we already know about the guy. What more we can learn about someone who's done so much for our city. April also goes on to talk about, we're talking about practice, man. We're talking about practice. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, Northeast Fishing! What's going on? Good morning, Farsi. So glad, please, preseason is over. SMD Eagles, what's going on? Bring on the Pats. Bring them on, baby. 16 days. Early Bird Show. Yeah, welcome in. Welcome to the party, pal. NJ Fishing Maniac. Nice to see you again. Farsi can't bench the bar. I don't know if I have moved the bar into this house yet. The bar might be in our storage location, which is what I call my parents' house. So I'm going to bring the bar on, and you're going to change your name because you're going to watch Farsi bench the bar, baby. Hit the like button, folks. Very nice of you. Daz, what's going on, Daz? Preseason. I mean, people just make it. People. But I never even said it. Ready to take 2 or 3 from the Cardinals. Yes, I am. As far as he can't get bench the bear. Good Lord. Daz, what's up, Daz? Preseason. I like people just celebrating the fact that the preseason is over. I am doing the same thing. Fighting's 4-6 the last 10 games. That is true. Not great. Bohm has really improved his glove. He absolutely has improved. I can't believe we're talking about the same guy. Alec Bohm has made 2 over-the-shoulder catches at third base in the past 5-6 days. He has been moved over to first base and been phenomenal. Like, no joke. Phenomenal at first base. Sliding catches, diving catches, good tosses on 3-1 putouts. He's played the third base spot in general. Great. Diving stops there, saving runs there, good, strong throws. The thing that I always knocked Alec Boehm for when it came to his defensive ability wasn't just his range in terms of balls that he could get to. It's he has shortened up that throw. He would wind up, and look, when you're 6'5", you're going to have a big wind up, all right? It's going to happen. I have seen him take more of a catcher's approach to throwing, where it's almost like that ball, instead of coming from way back here, is coming from right here, from behind the ear, firing it to first base. So whatever he has done to speed that up, he's done a great job of doing it. The barehanded plays that he's made at third base have been good as well. And then the other part of it is, let's not act like, for a second, and I want to be clear on this, let's not act like when you bring in Mundo Sosa in, especially after the last 2 months of the season, there's been a huge drop-off in terms of production, because you're still getting Bryce Harper in the lineup as a designated hitter. You're obviously still getting Kyle Schwarber's bat in the lineup when he's playing left field. Alec Boehm being moved to first base. He has played very well as a first baseman for this team. He has maintained his approach at the plate while doing so. And then Mundo Sosa over the last 2 months of the season has really helped you out from the plate and from the field as well. So that's not exactly a recipe for disaster. That's a lot closer to a recipe for success if the Phillies have to go into the playoffs with this type of setup. Now, I do hope that Bryce Harper is 100% healthy and whatever, getting hit in the forearm with a pitch or getting back stiffness or his knee bothering, whatever it might be. I hope all that is worked out by the time the postseason starts so that you can rely on him more so as your first base, because I don't want to have to rely on Rhys Hoskins where there might be this ramp-up period to him getting ready to play in big league ball games again. Like in the playoffs, you don't have time to ramp up. That's why the only thing I will say about him possibly making it back for the playoffs is like, I don't know if you need that. I mean, I'd love to see it if he's ready, but I don't know how anybody could be ready. If he made it back September 1st and had a month to ramp up, then maybe I'm buying it. But as of right now, I'm not buying it. So this is a fine recipe. This is fine. If Bryce Harper's healthy, he can play first base every day. The playoffs, all right, great. But if he's not, I think you're still in good shape. I think the best case scenario for the Phillies is that Bryce Harper's your everyday first baseman in the playoffs. I think that's your best case scenario. And then in turn, Brandon Marsh, Yohan Rojas, Christian Pache, he continues to deal with injuries. Those are your mainstay outfielders. And Jake Cave in a pinch. That's the way I see that playing out. But that's the way I see it going on there for the Phillies. Bowman's really good with the glove. What news on Taylor to the Eagles? Is there serious interest? EC1 football. Is there serious interest? Yes, I think they're seriously interested that they're not going to get him. Look, I know a lot of people come out with reports. All credit to them. I'm sure they do their due diligence with people that come out with reports. But if it's not someone of great regularity putting out a report, I tend to take it with a grain of salt. You could hear that there's interest. Even the word aggressive might be a little too much. I think Ian Book has a better chance of making the Eagles 53 than Jonathan Taylor. That's how I'll put it. And I just don't see it happening. And I outlined the reason why yesterday, and it's the obvious thing. It's money. If Jonathan Taylor's not just going to seek a trade to seek a trade, Jonathan Taylor's going to seek a trade and make money. He doesn't just want to be traded for the same contract. He wants to be traded to make money, and nobody is paying him. Al Morgani, I got to give him all the credit in the world. He came up with this idea years ago about how quarterbacks should just not even be a part of the cap anymore. Like quarterbacks should just be their own cap number. They're their own entity. Because they restructure deals all the time anyway, just to help the rest of the team. So why should it even count? I'm going to take that a step further. I don't think that's the case because they're going to get paid. It's like, do running backs just get their separate tier? Do running backs in the NFL, should they be the only ones allowed to sign exorbitant deals out of the draft? Like, think about this for a second. It used to be the quarterback, Sam Bradford was the last one to make the big old money, from what I remember. So going forward, do running backs need to go back to an old pay scale? Just running backs. And they have to play a certain amount of snaps at the running back position to qualify for that. Like, I don't know, because the teams would also bastardize that, but or manipulate that would probably be the better way to say it. But it's got me thinking, because this is wild. Because it's not like running backs are completely unimportant. They play a big role. I mean, who was it? The Chiefs passed on Jonathan Taylor, took Clyde Edwards-Helaire, won a Super Bowl, went to another one. And now Pacheco is their guy, and they won a Super Bowl. We all know that too well. But it's almost like, wow, if you're a running back, should you go to an old rookie pay scale where you can make more, unfortunately, than a veteran? Yeah. NJ Fishing Maniac. We have enough running backs, but Taylor is solid. Taylor is great. I'm not. Look, if you're here's the deal. If you're telling me, and I've said this a million times already, but if you're telling me that Jonathan Taylor's on the Eagles next year, I'm like, hell yeah, chalk up the Super Bowl. Well, all right, that's the parade route. Once again, is going to go from South Philly up the Broad Street, make a left on Market, go up to the JFK. That's the way we're going to go here. That's the way we're going to go. But they're not doing it. I think the Eagles are kicking the tires. So, yeah. We don't Book EC1 football. Book needs to go. God, he stinks. Well, I concur with you on that one. Thanks, everybody. Oh, we don't do screenplays. Don't need running back. You might. Screenplays might be making a comeback, baby. Here's 2 bold predictions for you after training camp and preseason. Ready? Here's 2 bold predictions for you. Eagles are going to blitz more than they did last year. They got the better personnel to do it. Eagles are going to blitz more than they did last year. And the Eagles are going to run more screenplays than they did last year. Why? Because they got the personnel to do it. That's why. 2 bold predictions for you right there. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This has been the Farzy Show, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be back with you guys tonight. Following Phillies and Cardinals, getting things underway. Jonathan Sanchez gets the ball for the Christopher Sanchez. God forbid, Jonathan Sanchez. Jonathan Sanchez will be starting just to throw at Chase Utley. But Christopher Sanchez gets to start for the Phillies, so the lefty will be on the hill looking to help the Phillies out and getting their 70th win of the season, which would be in some ways a shame. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you do hit like and subscribe and all that stuff. To the people on the podcast, thanks so much for a great week. And everybody else, I'll be back with you guys following the Phillies game against the Cardinals tonight. So much appreciated as per usual. Jim Hyde produced the program, did a wonderful job. My name is Mark Farzy. I'll be back with you guys tonight after the Phillies. And, of course, back with you guys on Monday for the Farzy Show as well. And I have to remember that I have to hit this thing, and I will. Have a great weekend, everybody. If I don't see you tonight in Fighting's postgame. See you then.